And we are back. Welcome to the Stupid Fans Club. I am your host here, Shaan Donn, and welcome to the club. For those of you who are not already subscribed, please subscribe to the YouTube. I've actually recently exclusively moved this to YouTube. I will maybe graduate to podcast audio, just audio a little later, but right now, getting all the love here on YouTube. So please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. It really helps us out here, and hope you enjoy. Another exciting weekend of football. College football, again, rules the weekend. I feel like every week I come in here and talk about how incredible of a weekend it was in college sports, college football specifically. But it is just a weekly thing of just shockers and excitements and letdowns. It's so much, it feels like, that happens every single Saturday and Friday as well. But I think that speaks to the climate of college football right now is all thanks to the parity in college football. I don't know if we have the NIL to thank for that. I don't know if it's just these smaller schools getting better players, whatever it is. There is a parity that we haven't seen for a while in the college football world. I think you look back to last year, it was Michigan, it was Florida State, it was, your big powerhouses as your favorites. These teams are undefeated. Georgia, Alabama. Like, can these teams be taken down? They are just these powerhouses. They have this impenetrable defense, whatever it is. And Georgia, for the 2 years before that, they were the big bad boys on the block. And then, of course, it was Alabama and Clemson. It was like these unbelievable teams that no one could measure up to. And now it feels like everybody's on an even playing field, which made it very easy to title the show for this week, Any Given Saturday. It is clear that anyone can lose on any given Saturday. No one is spared. It doesn't matter if you're going against a cupcake team or a conference rival. Everybody can get it. And this weekend was a testament to that. So we'll jump into some college football, a ton of upsets this weekend. And then, of course, we'll do some NFL recaps. And then we have the fight I've been waiting on all year. Bivol, Beterbiev. Can't wait for that one. So we'll jump into it. Of course, we're starting with good old college football. We'll start with the big one. We had a ton of upsets, but we got to talk Alabama, Vandy. I mean, let's do this here. I'm going to post the clip of me kind of previewing this game before it happened. So this was in last week's episode. Check out what I said in this clip here.
So they had the Georgia game, they're past that, and they have the Vanderbilt game coming up. I think both of these teams do have trap games here. Alabama at Vanderbilt, coming off that type of win, getting all the praise that you can get. Who cares about Vanderbilt? We come in here and stomp them year in and year out. But Vanderbilt is a 2-2 team this year. And again, not suggesting that they'll beat or even compete with Alabama. But Alabama has to come in there ready to play a football game.
So as you can see, that was my warning. I didn't think, and again, I don't want to take credit. I didn't predict this upset, but I just kind of know the landscape and how things go. I saw that Vandy is a more competitive team than they've been in the past. And I saw how they played Missouri. I saw that they're a 2-2 team. One of their losses came to my alma mater. Go Panthers, Georgia State. But I saw that they were a competitive team. This was a road game. And again, all you heard the week before this or leading up to this game was praises about Alabama. Give Jalen Milroe the Heisman. Ryan Williams is only 17. He walks on water. Alabama is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? And when you're dealing with 18 to nowadays 30-year-olds with all these with extensions of eligibility, but um, that gets to them. They start thinking their stuff doesn't stink, and they do feel like they're the best things walking, and forget that they have a team that wants to decapitate them the very next week. And you know, again, I said it. You got to play the team, not the name, not the history. You got to go out there and play the team. And I think Vandy came out there and surprised them with how well they competed with them, and this was the result. Bama falls to Vandy 40-35. I saw a lot of undisciplined play. I saw some penalty extending drives from Alabama against Vandy sometimes where it looks like they got them off the field, but it was a penalty. It was a holding. It was a face mask. It was always something that kept Vandy going. That could have, maybe stopped some of that momentum and gave Alabama a better chance here. But turnovers as well, aiding the Vandy drive. I think Milroe had that early pick to start the game. It wasn't his fault. I think it was just a deflected ball that bounced in the air. And I believe it was a pick six. But my question is this the first impact of the coaching change here? From the legend of Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer, is this our first sighting of things are different? Obviously, Saban never lost to Vandy, but I think context is probably good to have with this. Saban was at Bama for 17 years, and I have to fact check. I don't know if he's literally never lost to Vanderbilt, and I don't doubt it. But if he did, it was probably can count it on one hand, maybe one finger. But Vandy probably for his whole stint was never Vanderbilt has not been a force in the SEC for a very, very, very long time. And so even right now, I believe they're a 3-2 football team. They haven't usually even been that competitive. Like usually by this time of the year, they're already 1-4. They're an afterthought. It's like who worries about Vanderbilt? So this is a different Vanderbilt team that this Alabama team had to face. I can say that they usually haven't been this competitive or had the firepower to compete like this. But at the end of the day, it's still Vanderbilt. I mean, they're not expected to win a national championship, and they're not a ranked team. So I think it's definitely a bad loss, an embarrassing loss, a deflating loss after such an inflating win the week before. So I do think this may be a reflection of that, and I'm sure Kalen DeBoer maybe tried to relay to the players on that team, like, hey guys, we got another game next week. Let's not get caught up. This wasn't the national championship against Georgia. This was week 4. So I just think that you didn't see this with Saban teams. I remember saying it as I was watching it. I'm like, Nick Saban, I just feel like he wouldn't have allowed it. He wouldn't have allowed it. Even when going back to the Georgia Alabama game, and we've talked so much about it, but going back to that game, when in the midst of the crazy run Alabama was on in that first half, you see Nick Saban and he's over there in his booth sitting like this. Like he looked completely unfazed. And that is a legendary, like that's what you see from these legendary coaches. You don't get too high, you don't get too low. And at halftime, he spoke to it. He said, this Georgia team is capable of coming back. And then look what happened. So I think you think about on the heels of you escape Georgia, um, almost let up a big lead, and then you lose to Vandy. It is you may see some say I think this is kind of the first sightings of like that team doesn't have the same coach anymore. And it's the little things, even in the undisciplined play that you saw in the game. It's stuff that you just didn't see with the Saban coach team. And of course, he's Kalen DeBoer. He's not Nick Saban. He can't be the greatest coach of all time. You you just can't replace that. But nonetheless, it is what it is. They lost to Vanderbilt, and you did see a drop in play. You did see a drop in focus, and that's just not what we are accustomed to seeing with Alabama. Alabama's defense, I think it's clear now that that's a team, that's a defense that's going to give up points. They just are. 40 points by Vanderbilt. I mean, again, not something we're accustomed to seeing. They do have a lot of young players, especially in that secondary, but I think that's an area of weakness for them, an area of exposure for teams like it's not the same big old bad Alabama defense. You can score on them. They can score back very quickly, but that is not an area where it's the same concern as it used to be. And I think it got exposed in this game as well as the second half of the Georgia game. And then the other thing was like sometimes you have those games where a major player gets hurt on the overdogs team, or if they get lucky and some things fall this way, some things fall that way, and what do you know, they're ahead. Vandy went up 13-0. Alabama made a run, but Vandy was able to respond. Like they went toe to toe. It wasn't really a time in that game where it was like, okay, there we go. Vanderbilt is inferior. They are just not on Alabama's level. I saw it with Ryan Williams. Nobody's on his level. He looks outstanding. But as a team, Vandy looked like they can compete with Alabama. They did it. There was, again, no part in the game where it was like, oh, Vandy is just so much inferior. Look at this. Like I didn't see it. So they went toe to toe and they were able to match up and never back down from Bama the entire way through. So down goes Bama. Unbelievable win for Vanderbilt in that program. I saw that they took down that goalpost and then walked 3 miles to some river and dumped it there. It was an incredible win, and 1 week at number one, and Bama goes down. So that was the biggest upset of the week. But then we had Tennessee falls to unranked Arkansas 19-14. I think this again goes back to my earlier point about you cannot judge these teams until you've seen them play somebody of a certain caliber. Tennessee did play Oklahoma at Oklahoma, and we know Oklahoma has a great defense. So that can be their first test, but in the middle of that game, Oklahoma had to bench their quarterback, their starting quarterback, and they put in Hawkins, who gives them a better shot at winning. But that is kind of a flash game. I mean, Oklahoma clearly just offensively was not able to compete with Tennessee. They just didn't have enough offense in that game. You go to Arkansas, and it's a different story, right? I think Tennessee put up 70 or something crazy in one of the first few weeks of the season. They looked unbelievable. Who's going to stop them? Nico Iamaleava is the greatest quarterback in the entire world. He's going to win the Heisman. And now we're seeing them play some fierce teams. Listen, those teams, I think teams mentally, like look at how Alabama came out versus Georgia versus how they came out against Vanderbilt. They came out, we know what they did against Georgia. 28-0 in the first couple quarters. They come out against Vandy, 13-0. These little 3-2, 2-2, middle of the road, we're not great, but we're not terrible. Those type of teams, Arkansas. Like these teams give these undefeated big dogs so much trouble. Because again, one, I think part of it may be you may just come out and play the name of the team instead of playing the team itself in that specific game. Arkansas again is another one of those programs who haven't been competitive at all. They're an afterthought in the SEC. And when you see them come out and they're competitive and they're hanging with you and you can't really pull away and their defense is better than you thought. Kentucky, another great example. We saw what they did against Ole Miss. We saw what they almost did against Georgia. These teams are gritty. They come out with this aggression. It's again that hunter versus the hunted mentality. And I think that's what we're seeing and what we saw it again against Tennessee. I think it was a defensive first half here, 3-0, Arkansas up at the half. And then Tennessee starts to turn it on. They start to find their rhythm. And they end up in that second half, they score 14-3. And it looks like, okay, Tennessee has awakened and they're gonna pull away now. But it was like that just sparked something in Arkansas and they immediately responded and were able to stop Tennessee from scoring. And listen, man, these teams, again, these middle of the pack teams that you may easily overlook and think they can't hang with you, they can't compete, especially on the road in these primetime games. I mean, it's difficult. So I think Arkansas did a great job. Their defense stepped up big time when they needed to, especially to respond after that. After they score, I believe in 2 straight drives. I mean, start to extend that lead out. Tennessee probably wants to, give themselves some breathing room and, start to take control of the game. And Arkansas just completely flipped it and was able to close it out. And that's a really good thing to do against a quarterback like Nico. He's so great. But they showed up. They showed up big time at home, and down goes Tennessee. Another one bites the dust. And we aren't finished. We're just getting started. Texas A&M completely destroys Missouri 41-10. This was another one that I called. Didn't call the upset again. I was not high on Missouri. I could see it. They were in these close games early. They went down to the wire against Vanderbilt as well, as I mentioned. I think they had to beat Vanderbilt in double OT that game. And so I just saw some exposure there, and I'm just not super impressed with them. And College Station is just extremely difficult to play in. And Texas A&M, they showed it. And I also felt like Texas A&M was underrated. I believe they were ranked 25 at the time, and I think they're a heck of a team. Difficult to beat. Got a good quarterback, Connor Wegman, there, and what can you say? It was a blowout from start to finish. That defense shut Missouri down. Luther Burden, Theo Weiss. There was not much action there. Shut down the running game, and they got whatever they wanted on the offensive end all game long. I mean, it was an old-fashioned blowout. And again, I felt like it was a matter of time for Missouri. It wasn't competitive. Offense couldn't put any drives together. And their defense just had no answer for Texas A&M. They got whatever they wanted. So down goes Missouri, but not surprised about that one at all. And then USC, their struggles continue against Minnesota. They lost 24-17. They lost this on the road, and it's kind of it seems to be road struggles for them. They don't seem to, and it's not that they don't necessarily play well. I mean, they almost beat Michigan, and they lost this game 24-17. So one score game, but they just can't seem to close it or put it together all the way to finish on the road. And surprisingly, they unranked USC for this, and they do have two losses. I wonder how much this is impacted by Michigan and them now being 24. I wonder if that makes their other loss look worse, and now you lose to an unranked Minnesota. It's um, kind of disappointing, but surprised that they went from 11 to not a ranked team anymore. I still think they are a good team, but I think it is heading into a disappointing season for USC. Had a big win early in the season against LSU, and so expectations kind of shot up there. They look like a good team. And again, I think they still are, but they're losing some games that, you just either expected them to close out or didn't expect it to even be close here. But they do have Penn State coming up here, and so I think they will have a opportunity to make a big statement. And potentially, if they win out, they have Notre Dame at the end of the season, and some tough games. Still got to go at Washington. Still got to play Nebraska. So they have some games where they can maybe get back in the thick of things. Now that they're unranked, I don't know if they can shoot back up to a top 12 spot. Two losses too, it'll be tough. But I felt like that was a pretty harsh, maybe the 20s, but taking them out of the polls is that seemed. I could see maybe if they got blown out against Michigan and Minnesota, but they were in it, just couldn't close again. So um, definitely starting to feel like a disappointing season for USC. I think they have some optimism coming here. Obviously, you lose a player like Caleb Williams to the draft. Expectations just kind of lower a little bit, but you still got Lincoln Riley and you got a Miller Moss at quarterback. You feel a little confident about them. And so to start that season against LSU in Vegas with that big win, I think expectations shot up again. And then you have two kind of early losses. It's kind of shot it down. And then again, to be unranked now is tough. We'll see if they can bounce back. They can start with the win against Penn State and try to take it there. That'll be a tough one, but good opportunity for that USC team. And then moving on to Michigan versus Washington. Michigan goes down 27-17. Listen, Michigan has been an overrated team here to me. I don't think they were a top 10 team in the country at all. I think because of their style of play and their just absence at quarterback and their ability to throw the football down the field, I think they are on upset alert every week. I mean, they have to play such a specific style of football, just ground and pound, phone booth, we're going to beat you up on defense, make it super hard for you to score, and we're going to make sure we execute the run. Well, you can do that against teams that you can do it against, but when that goes out the window, then what? And I think you saw it early here. They realized, man, this Alex Origi thing is not going to work. You already benched Davis earlier, so it's It's like you're just struggling here at quarterback, and then they go with Jack Tuttle to take the reins, and he seemed like the most solid option right now. It gives them the best option to at least be a two-dimensional team. He was able to throw the ball a little bit there, but it was a close game. But Michigan just wasn't able to put together drives when they really needed to on the offensive side, especially when it mattered. They needed some big drives there to keep themselves in it and just weren't able to execute. And then they had two big time turnovers by Jack Tuttle. I do think he is the best option for them, and he kind of did get thrown in the middle of this one on the road. But I mean, they I just don't think Michigan has enough to be competitive this year, and I think they'll be on upset alert every week until they're unranked. So we'll see if maybe they can find something there with Jack Tuttle and revive their season. But two losses as well here, and they're ranked now at 24. I think they may now be out of the college football playoff race, but they also still have big games. Obviously, Ohio State still at Illinois next week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks from now. Still got Oregon, Indiana. They have some plethora of opportunities, honestly, to try to make things up there. But I just think they were an overrated team, and you know, kind of got exposed there. That is that. But man, oh man, Miami's incredible comeback there at Cal. First of all, I really wish this wasn't a 10:30 game. It was, especially, you got to think, it was all of this going on, these upset after upset, just primetime games, and couldn't believe what was happening. And then you got to end the day, 10:30 game on the Eastern side of things here. Miami versus Cal, which was an exciting matchup, but tough to stay up for. So this was unbelievable. 35-10 in the third quarter. The game seemed to be over. It seemed like here we are again, another upset. And Cal is a team that lost to Florida State, I believe. And so they were seen as a good team, but then you lose to a team that everybody seems to be able to beat. It was like, huh? And so they showed up against Miami and took control. There was nothing not going their way pretty much for that first half, and they were able to. They had Jaden Ott involved. They were moving the football, scoring at will, and again, this game seemed over. But from that point on, Miami just turned it on. And what I've learned was what I saw against Virginia Tech is true. Miami's defense is not all of that. But they did make plays when they needed to. They were very timely with when they came up with their stops, which is what allowed even for this comeback. Because even if they would have done that, what they did offensively, if the defense can't make any plays, it would be all for nothing. So their defense stepped up when needed to, but that's a defense that gives up points. And then their offense is true. We saw it in the early games where they weren't playing anybody, and you kind of wondered, okay, is this going to translate? It appears so. Cam Ward is the truth. They have big time weapons out there, and as long as he is on the field, you're never out of the game. And this is a prime example. That team may not have the strongest defense, but Cam Ward deserves to be and remain in that Heisman candidate race. And listen, that was a big time win for Miami. And I look at their schedule and see, like, they don't, again, you don't know it's any given Saturday, but if we're just taking the schedule at face value, it's not a daunting schedule by any sense of the imagination here. So they have a chance to, let's see their schedule here. They do have a bye week here after that big win. Then they have Louisville, who's okay, Florida State, okay, Duke, Georgia Tech, at Georgia Tech. That should be a good one. Wake Forest, and then ending the season at Syracuse. Tell me Miami's toughest game there. Syracuse will be a tough one, likely their toughest moving forward, but that's at the very end of the season. Duke is under the radar, but can be a tough game. And again, who knew that Virginia Tech would test them like that? Who knew that Cal would be a test? You kind of wondered, you kind of had like a side eye, like Cal may be able to compete with them, but you weren't all the way sure. And so, especially after this week, you won't be surprised if somebody does shock them and either defeats them or hangs with them when you didn't expect it. But just taking it at face value, they can easily be an undefeated team here at the end of the season. So more to come. We shall see, but an incredible comeback there by the Hurricanes, and they continue to roll. And then we have my dogs. We get back on track with a win against Auburn. We won this 31-13, and good win for Georgia. I did, as you saw in that clip earlier, I did have this and the Alabama Vanderbilt game as trap games, because these are two, after you play a big team, it's just so much that goes into it. It feels like the world is talking about it. It takes so much out of you. It drains you, especially to lose a game in that fashion like that. And then you go play this unranked team. For Georgia, it was at home. You think like, we just competed with Alabama like that. We'll walk through this team. And so, just an easy game for them to overlook and get shocked, as we saw with Bama. But they were able to pull it out. But here is my takeaway from the Georgia and Auburn game. And this may be a hot take, this may be controversial, but here's what I'm seeing. I think that there needs to be a sense of urgency for Georgia at this point. Georgia came out and they were able to score on their first drive, which was really what I was looking for. I wanted to see this team get off to better, quicker starts offensively. I said it before, and the things that you do or are able to get away with against mediocre or bad teams, you cannot do against good teams. We saw 2 weeks before the Alabama game, Georgia just looked sluggish, couldn't get going, escaped against Kentucky. We then saw that Kentucky team go and upset Ole Miss in the very next week. And then you go in Alabama, get off to this slow start, and now you're down 28-0. Alabama isn't going to let you hang around and get it together. They're coming out and they're attacking. You play a team like Kentucky, although they did beat Ole Miss, they're of a lesser caliber than a team like Alabama, and you're able to hang around there with field goals, and your defense was able to hold, and you cannot do that against good teams. And so they get out and score on that first drive, and I am very happy about that. But then nothing else happens. And then it turns out to be a 7-3 pretty much for the whole first half. Georgia ends up scoring with like 11 seconds left in the second quarter, just before halftime, to make it 14-3. But nonetheless, another slow start for Georgia. And the reason I think there needs to be a level of urgency here now, and again, this is probably right under I'm concerned, there needs to be a level of urgency, is because after you were getting belt to butt in the first half by Alabama, you would think like, all right, guys, we cannot play around. We got to come out here and immediately enforce our will. We got to get off to better starts offensively. You play a team, again, of a lesser caliber than the team you just played, and it's the same result. That tells me this isn't a focus thing. This isn't probably even an effort thing. This may be we can't get off to good starts. You may be incapable of doing it, meaning any given Saturday, if a team, you just want to come out and get off to these slow starts, it doesn't matter if it's Auburn or Alabama or Texas, you're going to get embarrassed because some of these teams aren't going to let you hang around and hang in the games. And you're going to get a repeat of that. You have got to get off to better starts. And again, I am not one of those fans who thinks that anybody besides Texas and Alabama, Georgia should be beating by 35 points because nobody can. No, obviously not. Every game isn't going to be a blowout or anything, but you do want to see some fluidity to the offense. I don't want to continue to see 3-and-outs, and now it's a 14-10 football game against Auburn, and we're like, oh, shoot, what's happening? Is Georgia going to win? What are we doing? And then eventually we get it going and rolling. And there was a time in that football game, I think when it went up 14-10, I think Hunter, for the running back for Auburn, took off for that big touchdown run. There you could see, and they even mentioned it in the game, Auburn got a confidence of like, we can hang with these guys. We can run on their defense. That's the other thing. The run defense doesn't seem incredible. Auburn was able to run without a lot of resistance throughout that entire game. So I was happy about the win. A win is a win, but disappointed that this was another slow start after the debacle of a first half we saw against a rival and a competitive team. That was, you just have to get off to better starts. And so you don't think I'm pulling this out of a hat. And Georgia is 4-1 now. Week 1, Georgia was up 6-0 against Clemson. We ended up pulling away and winning it by a lot. The second week we played Tennessee Tech. It's a cupcake game. Throw that out the window. Week 3, we were down at the half 6-3. Ended up winning that game 13-12. And then week 4, of course, or our fourth game, we were down 30-7 at the half against Alabama, as we know. And this game against Auburn, we were up 14-3 at the half, but 7-3 for the majority of the half until 11 seconds left in the first half, like I mentioned. So that is an area of concern. If Georgia is incapable of finding some chemistry and some flow with this offense, we are now approaching week 7, basically the halfway point, just over the regular season. And I'm still asking questions about who's the guy for Georgia. I think Dominique Lovett. Like, where's Oscar Delp? Trevor Etienne, he's great, but there just seems to be a lack of identity and chemistry and flow to the offense to start off games. I've always compared it to just this car that it's like it's cold outside, and before you start driving, you got to go turn on the engine and then let it sit for a while. let it get warmed up, let it get all nice and comfy, and then you can drive it. That's how Georgia's offense plays every single week. And then again, these teams, these other teams, the reason most people will see 31-13. What are we complaining about? It's because I saw 13-12 the week before we play Alabama, 2 weeks before we play Alabama, which led to 30-7 in the first half. They say you don't accept what you wouldn't in a loss and a win. And so these are things, listen, we have Texas in a couple of weeks. We have to figure that out. Texas will not hesitate to make this another 30-7 loss. And guess who's going to come out more focused because they know Georgia's going to try to make that run. And then we do get beat 70-3. Like Georgia has to figure that out, man. That is an area that needs urgency. I am holding off on saying concern, but you can probably hear it in my voice. So that was my takeaway. Nonetheless, happy that UGA was able to get the win. But at the end of the day, we know that Georgia has the third toughest schedule in the country, and their season is going to come down to 4 games. Alabama, which we've already played, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Obviously, it's the theme of this show is any given Saturday. So not overlooking any of those other teams. But if all is equal and we take care of business, that's what the season is going to come down to. And our success is going to come down to our placing, whether we're a bowl team or a college football playoff team. That's what it's going to come down to. If you want to be a college football playoff team, you can't strike out in those games. You can't lose all 4 of those. You can't lose 4 games. And we have 4 losable games on our schedule. So, and we already lost 1 of them. So you lose to Alabama, and then we got Texas, who is the number 1 team in the country now, and we have to go and see them. Then you got Ole Miss. They are not a pushover whatsoever. They're not going to let you hang around and get off to these slow starts and think you're just going to got to figure it out. And then Tennessee, like these are Georgia, I think to feel super comfortable, you want to win. You want to win the rest of these. You want to win 3 out of 4 to know like, okay, we should have a spot in the college football playoff with 3 or 4 of those wins. 2 is like, gosh, I don't know what that was about. 2 of 4 of those wins are, you're pushing it. You're pushing it. I mean, and then it's like, who is it against? And where are those teams ranked when we get to them? Like, it's just urgency is needed here for Georgia, and that's what it's going to come down to. Those 4 games, we all know it. The other thing was Nate Frazier. I think he is a spark plug for Georgia, and I think he has to get more playing time. I know that he is a freshman, but every time he touches the ball, he's electric. He has a different burst to them. He has that DeAndre Swift type of shiftiness to him. And I think he's just a spark plug for our team that we need to incorporate a lot more. And I would like to see Georgia stick to the run a little bit more. We have a really good running back with Trevor Etienne, and I like what I see in Nate Frazier as well. And don't forget about Dylan Bell. Like, we know what he can do as well as just kind of that joker, that athlete player. So I did like what I saw from the spurts of Nate Frazier. Would definitely like to see him involved more. And then one that was interesting was Kirby's statement after the game. spoke to being disappointed in the fans. And I know some fans, some of them will get on their high horse, like, we play your salary, and who are you to say maybe if we have a better performance? But like, as a Georgia fan, and I wasn't at this game, but I thought that was a fair critique. And I do think that coaches should call out fans. I think one, it'll get them, like, you'll give them something to work for. But a lot of these schools who are big dogs, while you try to keep your players focused and, like, don't play the name of the team, go out here and play this game like it's the championship. The fans are a part of the program too. They see it as well. Like, oh, we're just playing Mississippi State this week. Like, we'll go for a couple quarters and then we'll go back to our dorms. Like, we're going to be blowing them out by the second. Like, they treat it the same way too. I saw someone read, like, the student section was like a quarter of the way filled. I mean, Kirby spoke to, like, he couldn't get crowd noise. He's trying to make this a tough environment to play in, and the fans may seem a little uninterested. I do think, and he acknowledged, like, he knows he has to do a better job coaching. I think he's doing a fine job, but I do think, as I mentioned before, there are things we need to address. So I think some of that is probably due to that. Like, it was a 14-10 game in the third quarter against Auburn, and we're just kind of like, what's going on? We're having 3-and-out drives, just not looking fluid as an offense at all. And so there wasn't a ton to just cheer for. And I feel like that would be the fans' rebuttal to that. But I also do think, listen, like I said, the fans are a part of the program too. We have to show up as well. We don't want teams to just be able to come in here and, like, oh, okay, we can get our play calls out. It's not really a hostile environment. It's a big stadium, but it's not as bad as I thought. Like, you wanna make a deafening hostile environment for the opponents, no matter who we're playing. And so if you can't get that, I think that's super fair for Kirby to call out and expect for the fans. Because again, fans are a part of the program too. So that was an interesting one. But that was Georgia and Auburn. We'll jump into the Week 7 top 25 here. Big changes, of course. Obviously, we had upset city this week. Texas is now at number 1. Alabama fell from 1 to 7. We spoke to USC being out of the top 25 all the way from 11. That was a huge drop for them. Ohio State at number 2. I am comfortable with the first two. I think Texas, you kind of, by default, have to give them that number 1 spot. Still waiting for them to be tested again. I can't trust these teams without them playing someone of a higher caliber. I think we may get a glimpse of it here soon with the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma, but again, kind of depends on what Oklahoma we get. But if not, we will definitely see what they're made of against Georgia. But fine with them being number 1. Ohio State number 2, perfectly fine with that as well. And speaking of number 2, we got number 3, Oregon, who plays Ohio State next. I'll go ahead and say it. I was debating if I wanted to say this coming into the episode, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. Oregon is overrated. Oregon is not the number 3 team in the country. I just don't see it, not one bit. And they play Ohio State. And listen, I haven't had a hot take like this. This is a sizzling take. This is a McDonald's hot take. Ohio State is going to expose Oregon when they play. I do not see it in Oregon at all. I don't trust Dylan Gabriel all the way, and Ohio State's defense is solid, and their offense is unbelievable for me. They score a lot of points, and they are another one. They are a team where they can kind of get off to these slow starts, maybe let a team hang in there longer than they should, but they seem to always find it, and good luck after that. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Ohio State handles Oregon big time, and I think Oregon will be graced with the ranking that they should be after that. So Penn State, interesting one too. A number 4, hard to argue it. They've been perfect thus far. They've had a scare earlier, but I'm fine with them at 4. Georgia at 5, fine with that. And then you got Miami, Bama, and Tennessee. Tennessee goes to 8 after their upset loss. Ole Miss at 9, and Clemson back up at 10. They are on a tear. You know, they're looking to make a point here and take over that ACC. Boy, what a exciting championship game that would be. Clemson versus Miami. So we'll see there. Yeah, nobody else in the ACC there. Yeah, strong top 10. Texas A&M moves up to 15, jumps up to 15, while Missouri drops to 21 after losing to A&M. Boise State up there again. They should be changed to Ashton Gentry State. He runs that school there. Literally runs the school. See what I did there? And so yeah, strong top 10, strong top 25. Those are the biggest call outs there. Michigan definitely free fall, free fell, had a free fall to 24 there after being ranked at 10. And yeah, that is the top 25. I like it. And again, speaks to the parity. Who wins the national championship? Like it's still wide open. Texas and Ohio State would have to be your favorites here, but listen, we'll see. Again, I think Oregon gets exposed, but who knows? This will be a good test for Ohio State, and I believe they have to go to Eugene for that game, so that'll be interesting. And then Texas, same, the favorite, but see what you look like against Georgia. See what you look like against that Oklahoma defense. So I am loving it. Week 7 matchup previews. We have the big one. So yes, this is coming up. Texas versus Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. I can't wait to see that. Again, Texas' second big road test this season. We'll see how they fare against Oklahoma. And we then have Ohio State versus Oregon, which we talked about as well. And like I said, this is Oregon's chance to show we are not number 3 by default. We belong with the big dogs, and here's why. But my hot take is they don't belong with the big dogs and will get exposed by Ohio State. Kansas State versus Colorado. I'm excited about that one. Colorado, again, must see TV. They are incredible, but I think they have their biggest challenge here coming up. Kansas State is tied with Oklahoma and Indiana for the 18th spot in the top 25, and Avery Johnson is electric. I don't think Colorado has faced a quarterback like that at all. I think UCF had the running quarterback, but it's not Avery Johnson. It's a lot different. So their hands will be full. They will be at home for that game, but I think this is a huge opportunity for Colorado. This is a huge opportunity for them to go out there and show, hey, we belong. I think this will be their ticket into the top 25. If they can find a way to take down Kansas State as well, and just not even the top 25, this will change the tune about Colorado and how people are looking at them as a whole. So I think that will be a big one. I will be tuned in. And again, we know that nearly every game Colorado plays, it is must-see TV. And I will be seeing Ole Miss versus LSU. Oh, that's going to be a big game. Number 9 versus number 13. LSU seems like they also are another one who are just like always in these tight, down to the wire, back and forth games. Ole Miss has already lost to Kentucky, an unexpected loss, so they obviously don't want to go down to LSU while you still have Georgia on the schedule and Oklahoma on the schedule as well. So big game for Ole Miss as well as LSU. We'll see how that goes. I do think LSU's defense will have to step up. I do think they are prone to give up big points as well, but we'll see. It'll be a good challenge for both teams, and may the best man win. And then last two, we got South Carolina versus Alabama. Obviously, we know the favorites there, but want to see the response from Alabama. Can they focus back in and not implode after an upset? And South Carolina, I think, is another one of those middle of the pack teams that can compete if you let them get their running game going. And you know they're a sneaky good team. So will be interesting. I expect Alabama to respond and win big, but we will see. And then finally, Penn State versus USC. Again, a chance for USC to get back into the conversation and an opportunity for them to take down a top 5 team in Penn State. And a big road test for Penn State as well. So going to be good. Penn State better not go out there playing the rankings. Obviously, USC is I think better than an unranked team. So we'll see how that goes for them. That wraps up the exciting week of college football, man. So much that happened. And every single week, I'll just come in with just more exciting news. It tops what happened before, more surprises, more headlines. It's all great, man. You gotta love college football. But that's that. NFL, we have the Falcons, my Falcons, defeating the Bucs in a Thursday night game. The Falcons are becoming another must-see TV team. All their games come down to the wire, and I know this personally from being a lifelong Falcons fan. Everything is down to the wire. I can't remember the last time we just blew a team out. I was like, I could turn the channel in the second quarter. The Falcons are an exciting team to watch, but obviously it's not so exciting from the fans' perspective because when your heart is in it and you're watching every single play, you almost can't take it. It's just like, oh, can we just win the game? Can we just pull away? But huge win for them against the Bucs division game there. And the Falcons are leading the NFC South 3-2. Listen here, folks. Let me look at my camera. Kirk Cousins is legit. He's shown that if you give him time, he is going to make you pay. He's worth every bit of money we paid him. I know there were some questions from some people about that. I wonder who was questioning that. But man, he played a heck of a game. Threw for a gazillion yards that game and came up huge for us. Is the offense unlocked? I felt like that was the biggest thing for the Falcons. Like the defense looked solid, and we knew we had the weapons on the offensive side of things, but could we unlock them? Could we use them? Absolutely, we did. Kirk Cousins throws for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Drake London 12 receptions for 154 yards, one touchdown. As we've seen, the Falcons end up winning that game in a walk-off touchdown by Kadero Hodge, which was unbelievable for the Falcons to even get to that point. It was a game-tying drive. We go down the field. Kirk Cousins once again takes us down the field. Younghoe Koo saves the day with the game-tying field goal. We win the coin toss in OT, and Kirk Cousins finishes it off with Kadero Hodge. Unbelievable game. I'm so proud of my Falcons, and I think if we can continue that offensive, and again, I don't think it's necessary or even feasible. Like, oh, if Kirk Cousins could just throw for 500 yards every week, then no. But if we can have that fluidity, for the first time, it looked like our number one receiver was our number one receiver. Drake London was multiple catches, making his impact on the game. Mooney had a big game. Like everybody just played their part, and implemented themselves very well, and helped us to that win. I loved every bit of it, and excited to see what we have coming up. Got the Panthers next. We won't overlook them. One thing, again, I do know about the Falcons game is that every game will be competitive. There's no no sense of even looking at the Falcons schedule ahead to try to gauge the record. It's who knows. Who knows? I don't care if it's the sorriest team in the NFL. We're gonna find a way to make it interesting. The other interesting thing I came across this week, I haven't heard much about it, but I have heard that Haason Reddick is still available, and the Falcons are in the conversation. I think that takes the roof off. And he's obviously been sitting out for quite some time. I believe he signed with the Jets, but they can't, or supposed to go to the Jets, and guess they just can't get that together. But if we can get Haason Reddick, oh my goodness, he is the pass rusher that the Falcons have dreamed of. Falcons fans have dreamed of. I remember watching Eagles games, instead of random, probably some primetime games last season, and I was like, man, this guy is a terror. Like he is always impacting the game. I always hear his name. If we can get that, because that is the piece that the Falcons are missing. Secondary solid. Defense as a whole is solid. Interior defense, Big Grady, Jared in there, Judon. We got the pieces, but man, we are a championship contender for real. Right now, we kind of, yeah, possibly, but we are a real championship contender if we can get Haason Reddick. Please, please, Father, let that happen. My goodness, that would be amazing. That was Falcons Bucs there. Ravens pull out an exciting win over the Bengals. That was an incredible back and forth game. I mean, it was just honestly a lack of defense from both sides. The Bengals would score, Ravens would find a way, come right back, and it went into overtime. It was, I believe, the Ravens got the coin toss, were driving the football down the field, and then out of the blue, there was a mishandled snap by Lamar, and the Bengals recovered it. They are on their side of the field. They get into field goal range, and what do you know? A bad snap, or I don't even know if it was a bad snap. It was a mishandled snap for the holder, and he wasn't able to stand the football upright, and McPherson was unable to make do with it, pulls the kick all the way, and that gives Baltimore a second life, and King Henry, he pretty much closed it out there for them. So the Ravens escaped with the win. Their defense, and as well as the Bengals defense, but um, on the Ravens side, their defense just gave up too many big plays, honestly, and that should have been a loss for them. I mean, if it wasn't for that mishandled snap, it was a very makeable field goal for Cincinnati there. And that could have easily been a loss for the Ravens. So concern there for the Ravens defense and also the Bengals. The Bengals are now a 1-4 football team, and they are struggling. They're struggling. Joe Burrow coming back from injury, but playing well. Can't say he's doing anything wrong on his end, but has some issues there with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in the offseason, just not being on the same page with the organization. And now you are at the bottom of the division down there with Cleveland, and just struggling to get a win. Your only win is against the Panthers. And so, the question is it over for the Bengals? Week 5 is just this. It's just this, or just a tank season. Do we go away with it? Not quite. I don't think it is. Listen, the offense is doing okay. Joe Burrow is getting better every week. He had 5 touchdowns this week. And I think, look, you get that first week loss, played poorly to the Patriots. The Patriots are obviously terrible. You lose 16-10. And then you have a heartbreaking loss to Kansas City in Arrowhead. You lose 26-25. You lose by a point. And then here comes the smoking hot Commanders with Jaden Daniels. They pull away, beat you 38-33. And you beat the Panthers. And then you have a tough, just things don't go your way, OT loss to the Ravens. So every game that you lost is by one possession. A lot of them, like the Chiefs loss, was by a point. You lost this week by a field goal. You lost to the Commanders by 5. I mean, these are close, tough games that you all are in for the majority of the game. And then listen, your next 3 games at New York, at Cleveland, and home against the Eagles. And then after that, you get the Raiders and then a Ravens rematch after that. I think they can easily, by the time they get back to the Ravens, let's say you go ahead and beat the Giants, even though they're a sneaky good team there. If you can take care of the Giants, you should take care of the Browns. And then the Eagles, go out there and play a good football game. You can beat them. And then the Raiders, you're expected to beat them. By the time you get to the Ravens again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 potential straight wins that you could have. And now you're at 500 with a team that you should have beat, but mishandled snap on the field goal gave you your loss. You're back into the swing of things. So I don't think they're out of it at all. And I think it's encouraging that even though they are losing, you're playing well. Now, defensively, they got to get better. You can't just be giving up 40 points. They got to step up there. But I don't think it's over for the Bengals at all. So they should just stay in the fight and not let go. If you let go, if you quit, if you don't like how your record looks right now, the way things are going, then it will be over. But a lot of football here and a great opportunity for them. And then San Francisco, the 49ers, they blow another lead and lose to the Cardinals 24-23. Disappointing. And this one was, this one was a game where you get Debo back and you get George Kittle back. Ayuk is still there. Juwan Jennings still there. You're just missing Christian McCaffrey. The question is it time for concern in San Francisco? Not quite. I have so much confidence in this team because they are drowning in talent. And so I can't say I'm concerned just yet, but you're losing some games here that you could have closed out. I mean, they're 2-3 and could be a 5-0 football team. If you can close things out against the Cardinals, if you could close things out against the Rams as you should have, and then had a tough loss to the Vikings, who we see are good. You could be 5-0 or at least 4-1 team right now. Um, and so I think they can still bounce back just due to talent. I don't hear any signs of Christian McCaffrey returning soon, so they're going to have to figure it out. But they are they just got to close games. I think that's what it comes down to. You just got to close these games out. You're up in the majority of them, and you're just letting things slip through. If they can put it together, again, I still think they're a dangerous team. I don't want to take them off my contenders list just yet, but reality is reality. Your two wins are against the Jets and the Patriots. And so those are two mediocre at best teams, and I think the Patriots are a bad team. So good right now, not the position you want to be in, but not ready to give up faith yet, and not ready to be concerned yet. Emphasis on the yet. But again, more football to play. And then finally, the Jets fire Robert Saleh. That was shocking to me. They are a 2-3 team as well, and they are, haven't been playing well, but shocked that they pulled the trigger this fast, this quickly. Um, Obviously, expectations. You have Aaron Rodgers on the team. He missed all of last season, and he's not getting any younger, and not playing the greatest at the moment. But you kind of know it's like this is our window. We have the pieces we want, and you're trying to pull away here and finally be a competitive team, but things are not aligning at the moment, and they decided to go in a different direction. I don't know if I agree with it. I feel like it's just a very like teams just don't allow, especially when you get big names like Aaron Rodgers there. Teams and organizations, they want results and they want it right now. And you're one win away from being a 500 team. The Bills in your division, they are looking shaky. You're second in your division. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think you could give this more time. Who are you going to have take the reins now? Like, what? I don't see what benefit it does firing him in the middle of the season. But I don't know. That's the direction they decided to go, and that was a shocker. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, the Jets don't look very, very good right now. But you do have Aaron Rodgers and you have good players, but got to figure out how to put it together here. Quick hits in the NFL. The Bears are winners of two straight. Their offense is starting to click. Team you got to watch out for. They are looking good. And then Jaden Daniels continues his winning. Another big week for him. He had a rather pedestrian game throwing the football this week, but he had 11 carries for about 82 yards this week here, and looks fantastic. I am super excited about the game against the Commanders and the Ravens. Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. That is going to be a fun watch there. The Broncos and Bo Nix continue to impress. What I love to see was the clip of Sean Payton getting on Bo Nix, and Bo Nix as a rookie firing right back, showing that fire and grit to Coach Payton. We saw how Sean Payton did Russell Wilson, we know he can be super demanding and almost like a sergeant and just can weigh on you heavy. But Bo Nix is a fiery player too, and he's winning football games. So I love to see his challenge back to the coach, and love what I'm seeing out there in Denver. Don't know if I expected this. You let go of Russell Wilson in the kind of tasteless way they did, and no Jerry Jeudy. It's kind of like, what are the Broncos doing? What direction are they going in? Oh, they're gonna give the keys to a rookie quarterback and let go of Russ. It's kind of like, okay, but Sean Payton saw something in Bo Nix. He got the quarterback that he wanted, and they look pretty doggone good right now. So love what I'm seeing there. Giants defeat the Seahawks. I just want to say that I had the Seahawks on my pretenders list, and it is now showing. I was unimpressed with the Seahawks, even though they got off to that fast start. And I think it's starting to show now. But a lot of season left. We'll see. But wasn't too confident in Seattle from the beginning. Cowboys pull out a late win with a clutch catch by Tolbert to beat the Steelers. And the Steelers have now dropped two straight. They obviously have a very good defense as always, but pretty pedestrian offense. They have Justin Fields kind of in that game manager role. And, it's not really exciting, but they were winning games, but now have lost two straight here. So we'll see how they recover and kind of what's up with Russell Wilson. I don't know if the plan is for him to take over or not. I'm sure it'll be an easier decision if the Steelers continue to lose games, but we'll see. Good win for the Cowboys, though. That was a tough road game for them, and they were able to pull it out. And then the biggest previews for week 6 in the NFL, like I said, the Commanders versus the Ravens, Lamar versus Jaden Daniels. Oh, I'll have my popcorn ready for that. And then the Lions at the Cowboys. I will see how that plays out. Lions, strong football team. Cowboys still trying to get back on track and keep things going after their big win. So those will be two interesting games next week. And to wrap things up, man, the big fight that we've all been waiting for, Beterbiev versus Bivol. This is in Riyadh, and so I had to remind myself this is going to be another one of those midday fights, which I don't love. Like, I like inviting the friends over, getting your wings, and that late night fight, watching the undercards, and that vibe. So kind of turning the game on, and the sun is still out. I said turning the game on, turn the fight on, and the sun is still out, and it's 6 o'clock. It feels weird, but it does give you your night. So if you did have something planned for the night and wanted to be kind of out and about, still have time to do it. But just feels a little like weird with these midday fights in the States. But nonetheless, an incredible matchup. I think I saw Boots refer to this as the perfect fight, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is a crazy matchup. I am leaning toward Beterbiev, but I mean, who knows? I mean, they are as equal, I believe, as you can get. We did say the same thing about, or a lot of people said the same thing about Spence and Crawford. I think it's very similar to that. It's like who wins this fight, and then we saw the outcome, and so we saw someone completely superior over the other. But at the moment, it's very tough to predict. Beterbiev doesn't have fights without knocking the opponent out. It'll obviously be much tougher to do against Bivol, but we know that Beterbiev has great power. So does Bivol. So, it's again, it's just such a back and forth thing. It's like he has this, but he has that too. Leaning towards Beterbiev, but gonna be an amazing fight. I will have my wings and my fries in front of my face at 6 o'clock, and I will be tuned in. And then we got some good undercards. I think Ben Whitaker is fighting the flashy guy who went viral on Instagram. It's good for him. It's worked. It's got him all the way to a Riyadh card event, and I'll be super excited to see him fight. Chris Eubank Jr. is another one. Shakur was supposed to be on this card. Obviously, he got hurt and won't be on it any longer, but should still be an exciting undercard. But I expect a thrilling main event. So big things happening in boxing. Finally, Tank, he returns December 14th. Looks like it'll be in Houston, I want to say I saw. And he is fighting Lamont Roach. I didn't know very much about him. I had to do my research, and he's a good fighter. He has power. He looks to be about like similar size as Tank. He does knock out a lot of his opponents, has strong power. And the question kind of was, is he a worthy opponent? And the other thing, I kind of was talking to my friend Czar about this, like, who else is there? Like, it kind of dawned on us, like, well, Shakur is hurt. Devin Haney is going through his stuff from this last fight with Garcia. Garcia is going through his stuff from his last fight with Haney. He fought Frank Martin. Uh, I just don't know who really is out there for him to fight. Uh, I think we all want to see, everybody's calling for the Shakur fight, but he obviously has to get healthy. He has another fight before him. So, and who knows does Tank really even want to fight Shakur? I don't know if he's thrilled about that. I know that would be a huge payday, but I don't think that Tank feels that Shakur would engage enough to make that an exciting fight, and potentially a loss for Tank for just not being able to get to a fighter. If he can't tee off because a guy is running, or you feel like he's running, and then it just can make for a lackluster fight. We've seen some Shakur fights be lackluster. Shakur not really willing to engage. So very interesting to see. But I think Tank takes care of Lamont Roach. I think Lamont does have good power that Tank will have to respect. But I don't think it's I think it's levels, and I think Tank shows he's a dog again. And once again, I think we'll be back thirsting for another fight from Tank, and hopefully we can get Shakur. Seems like if he's fighting in December, Shakur is recovering. We may be aiming for a summer matchup with Tank and Shakur if we can get it, or Tank and another big name. Obviously, there was some disappointment and questioning of this opponent. I wasn't very familiar with Lamont Roach at all, but I think he's a respectable opponent. We'll see what kind of fight he puts up, but I do think Tank is on another level, and I think we kind of get the same result. That is that, folks. That is that. We talked about a ton of college football. We had a recap of week 6 in the NFL, and we talked about the exciting fights coming up this weekend, Beterbiev and Bivol. Some exciting matchups coming up for next week or this upcoming week in college football and the NFL. Another great episode, man. These weekends are fun with all these sports happening. And hey, basketball right around the corner. Got to get our first look at LeBron and Bronny on the court at the same time. That's like mind-boggling. So that was great. I think we got an exciting season coming up, and more to talk about, man. More to talk about. I'm looking forward to it. Again, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe to the YouTube. Again, I am exclusively on YouTube. This is the Stupid Fans Club. Please like and comment as well. And we are going to keep them coming. I appreciate you all hanging with me this week, and we will be back again next week. Take care.